Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UNS Discovery, watching the planet below spin slowly in the void. The world was beautiful with its blue oceans and green continents, but Jake knew they were not here for the scenery. This planet held something far more valuable than pretty views. Deep beneath its surface lay deposits of quantum crystals that could power faster than light engines for 1,000 years. Dr. Lisa Kane worked at her station running scans of the mineral deposits. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel as data streams flowed across her screen. She had been studying these crystals for 3 years and finally found a world rich enough to supply all of humanity's growing fleet. Commander Ryan Torres stood nearby watching the sensor readings for any signs of trouble. Space was vast and empty, but Ryan had learned never to trust the quiet. The Discovery had been in orbit for 6 days. Jake's crew of 40 scientists and engineers worked around the clock to map every crystal deposit on the planet's surface. They had found enough raw materials to build a mining operation that would last centuries. Earth needed these crystals desperately. Humanity had spread to 47 colony worlds, but the old engines were breaking down. Without new quantum crystals, the colonies would be cut off from Earth forever. Jake was reading the latest survey reports when the ship's alarms began screaming. Ryan's voice cut through the noise, sharp and urgent. "Captain, we have incoming ships, multiple contacts decloaking off our starboard bow." The main screen flickered and showed space around the Discovery. What had been empty void moments before now held 5 massive ships. Each vessel was over 2 miles long with dark metal hulls covered in strange markings. They moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so huge. Jake felt his stomach drop as he realized these were not human ships. "How many life signs?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Lisa's hands flew over her controls. "Over 10,000 per ship, sir. These are not exploration vessels." The communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in perfect English, though it sounded wrong somehow. The words were too precise and cold. "Human vessel, you will respond immediately." Jake nodded to Ryan, who opened the channel. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations Ship Discovery. We are conducting peaceful scientific research." "You are trespassing," the voice replied without emotion. "This system belongs to the Zephyrian Collective. You will prepare to receive our admiral." Jake looked at Ryan, who shrugged. They had no choice but to comply. "We welcome your admiral aboard," Jake said into the microphone. The aliens did not use shuttles. Instead, a column of light appeared on the Discovery's main deck, and when it faded, a tall figure stood where empty air had been moments before. Admiral. Kethavar was over 7 feet tall with pale blue skin and 4 arms. His uniform was made of some material that seemed to shift color in the light. 2 guards flanked him, both carrying weapons that hummed with energy. Jake met the admiral in the ship's conference room. Lisa and Ryan came with him along with the ship's senior officers. Kethavar sat across from them, and his black eyes studied each human face. When he spoke, his voice filled the room with quiet authority. "I am Admiral Kethavar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet," he began. "Your species has expanded beyond acceptable limits. This system and 50 others in this sector belong to the Collective. You will withdraw immediately." Jake tried to stay calm. "Admiral, we had no knowledge of your territorial claims. Perhaps we can reach some agreement." Kethavar's expression did not change. "There will be no negotiation. Your species is young and primitive. You have grown too quickly without wisdom. This always leads to conflict and destruction." "We are peaceful explorers," Lisa said. "We only seek knowledge and resources to help our colonies survive." The Admiral turned his dark gaze to her. "Peaceful species do not build warships. We have observed your military vessels. We have studied your history of violence and conquest. You are no different from the 17 other species we have encountered in this galaxy." Ryan leaned forward. "What happened to those other species?" 12 chose wisdom and accepted integration into the Collective. They serve us now as valued members of our empire. 5 chose rebellion. Kethavar paused. Those 5 no longer exist. The words hung in the air like poison. Jake felt sweat on his palms but forced himself to speak. What exactly are you demanding? Of us? Kethavar stood and his guards moved closer. All human colonies beyond your home system will be evacuated within 1 standard year. Your species will remain within the Sol system permanently. Your warships will be decommissioned. In return, you will be allowed to live. That's impossible, Ryan said. We have 12 billion people spread across dozens of worlds. We can't just abandon them. Then you choose extinction, Kethvar replied simply. We have destroyed species with far greater technology than yours. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your simple minds cannot comprehend our tactical superiority. Jake stood as well. I need to consult with my government. How do we contact you with our decision? The Admiral smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You have exactly 1 Earth year from this moment. When that time expires, we will return with our full battle fleet. If your colonies remain, we will remove them. If your warships still patrol beyond Sol, we will destroy them. If you resist, we will turn every human world into burning cinder. Lisa had been quietly running scans with a hidden sensor. Her eyes widened as she read the data. The Zephyrian ships were beyond anything humans had built. Their shields could stop weapons that would crack planets. Their own weapons could destroy cities with single shots. This is our final warning, Kethavar continued. We do not enjoy slaughter, but we will not permit your continued expansion. Choose wisely, young species. Your survival depends on it. The Admiral and his guards vanished in another column of light. Jake stood in the empty conference room, feeling the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. Lisa was already copying all sensor data about the alien ships. Ryan was calculating how long it would take to reach Earth at maximum speed. Jake, Lisa said quietly. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours, maybe thousands of years. If they decide to attack, I don't think we can stop them. Jake looked out the viewport at the alien fleet. The massive ships hung in space like sleeping giants waiting to wake. Maybe not, he said, but we have to try. Send a priority message to Earth. Include everything we've learned about these ships and their capabilities. Ryan began preparations for immediate departure. The Discovery's engines came online and the ship turned toward home. As they accelerated away from the planet, Jake watched the Zephyrian fleet until it disappeared behind them. In 1 year, those ships would return with reinforcements. Humanity had 12 months to prepare for a war they could not win. The quantum crystals lay forgotten in the planet's crust. Humanity had found the resources they needed to power their expansion, but they might not live long enough to use them. Jake Morrison stared into the darkness of space and wondered if he was looking at humanity's grave. President Claire Bennett stood before the emergency session of the United Nations, looking out at faces filled with fear and disbelief. 6 months had passed since Captain Morrison brought news of the Zephyrian ultimatum. The initial panic had given way to grim determination, but Claire could see the weight of humanity's situation in every delegate's eyes. My fellow leaders. Claire began, her voice steady, despite the magnitude of what she was about to say. We face the greatest threat in human history. An alien empire demands we abandon our colonies and retreat to Earth. They have given us 6 more months to comply or face total destruction. General Marcus Stone stepped forward, carrying a briefcase filled with classified reports. His weathered face showed the strain of the past months. Madam President, the Terran Defense Command has completed its analysis. Evacuation is impossible. We have over 12 billion people spread across 47 colony worlds. Our entire merchant fleet working at maximum capacity could move perhaps 1 billion people in 6 months. Murmurs rippled through the assembly hall. The delegate from New Geneva raised her hand. What about partial evacuation? Save who we can. Claire shook her head. Intelligence reports suggest the Zephyrians will destroy any human presence they find beyond Sol. Even a single mining station would be seen as defiance. We cannot abandon 11 billion people to save 1 billion. Dr. Elena Rodriguez entered the hall carrying a data pad. Her team had worked without sleep for months analyzing the sensor data from the Discovery. Elena had been Earth's leading physicist before the crisis, but now she carried humanity's hopes for survival. I have an update on Project Prometheus, Elena announced. We've made significant breakthroughs in 3 key areas based on the Zephyrian ship scans. The assembly fell silent as Elena activated the large display screen. Technical diagrams filled the space above their heads, showing weapon designs and shield configurations. First, we've developed adaptive shielding that learns from incoming energy attacks. Each hit makes the shield stronger against that specific weapon type. Second, we've created kinetic projectile systems that completely bypass energy shields. The Zephyrians rely entirely on energy weapons and defenses. They may not be prepared for simple physical projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. A delegate from Mars colony interrupted. Doctor, what good are new weapons if we don't have ships to mount them on? Elena smiled for the first time in months. That brings me to the third breakthrough. We've developed quantum encryption that should make our communications impossible to hack. The Zephyrians rely on disrupting enemy coordination. If they can't break our communications, they lose a major advantage. Commander Alex Harper stood and addressed the assembly. His uniform bore the insignia of the newly formed Solar Defense Fleet. Based on Dr. Rodriguez's work, we've completely changed our military strategy. Instead of building massive ships like the Zephyrians, we're constructing thousands of smaller, faster vessels. Alex activated another display showing sleek, predatory-looking ships barely 200 meters long. These strike cruisers can be built quickly using resources from the asteroid belt. They're designed for hit-and-run tactics. Swarm the enemy, overwhelm their targeting systems, and strike at weak points. Claire watched as hope began to replace despair in the delegates' faces. How many ships can we build in 6 months? Current projections suggest 8,000 combat vessels of various sizes. We're converting every shipyard in the system and building new ones in the belt. Every human with engineering knowledge is working on the project. The delegate from Europa stood. What about the colonies? Are we simply abandoning them? General, Stone answered. We're implementing a selective evacuation and fortification strategy. Worlds with strategic value or strong defenses will be reinforced. Others will be abandoned with their populations moved to fortress worlds. We can't defend everywhere, but we can make the enemy pay dearly for what they take. Elena pulled up another display showing colony worlds marked in different colors. Green worlds would be reinforced. Yellow worlds would serve as supply bases. Red worlds would be evacuated completely. The colony of Kepler 442 will serve as our outer defensive line, General Stone explained. We're moving the entire Third Fleet. They're along with orbital defense platforms. If the Zephyrians want our colonies, they'll have to fight for every system. Claire looked around the assembly one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at a crossroads. We can surrender our freedom and retreat to Earth like frightened children. Or we can fight for the right to exist as a free species among the stars. Their vote was unanimous. Admiral Patricia Cole received command of the Solar Defense Fleet 3 weeks later. Her flagship was the UNS Liberation, a new heavy cruiser built specifically to test humanity's new technologies. As she stood on the bridge watching construction ships work frantically in the asteroid belt, Patricia felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. Commander Danny Foster approached with the latest production reports. His own ship, the UNS Defiant, was one of the first vessels to receive the new adaptive shields. Admiral, we're ahead of schedule. 7,000 ships completed with another 1,000 in final assembly. Patricia nodded, studying the tactical displays. How are the crews? Volunteers from every colony world. They know what they're fighting for. Morale is high despite the odds. Through the bridge windows, Patricia could see the largest construction project in human history. Entire asteroids had been hollowed out and converted into shipyards. Streams of raw materials flowed between processing stations while finished warships rolled off assembly lines in endless succession. Dr. Rodriguez arrived on the bridge carrying the latest test results. Admiral, the new weapons exceeded all expectations. A single kinetic torpedo can penetrate shields that would stop our most powerful laser batteries. What about their weapons against our defenses? Elena's expression grew serious. Their energy weapons are devastating against conventional shields, but the adaptive systems show promise. The more they shoot at us, the stronger our defenses become. Patricia turned to address her senior staff. The enemy expects us to fight like the other species they've conquered. Massive ships slugging it, out in traditional battle lines. Instead, they'll face chaos. Thousands of small ships attacking from every direction using tactics they've never encountered. Lieutenant Amy Chen entered the bridge carrying dispatches from the outer colonies. Her fighter wing had been training with the new kinetic torpedoes. Admiral, the Kepler garrison reports ready for combat. All defensive positions are manned and supplied. How long until the Zephyrian deadline expires? 18 days, ma'am. Patricia looked out at the fleet assembling in space around them. 8,000 ships crewed by volunteers who knew they were probably flying to their deaths. Signal all ships. Begin final deployment to defensive positions. The vast armada began moving, spreading throughout the Sol system and beyond. Some ships headed for the outer colonies to join garrison forces. Others took positions in the asteroid belt ready to strike at enemy supply lines. The fastest ships moved beyond the system entirely, serving as early warning scouts. Patricia remained on the Liberation as it joined the main battle fleet. Her ship would lead humanity's response to the Zephyrian invasion. All ships, this is Admiral Cole. In 18 days, the enemy will return expecting to find humanity cowering in defeat. Instead, they will find us ready for war. She paused, looking around the bridge at faces filled with determination. They believe we are just another primitive species to be conquered or destroyed. They think our simple minds cannot match their ancient wisdom. They are about to learn what makes humanity different. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We fight. The fleet acknowledged her words with a chorus of responses. Across human space, 8,000 ships and their crews prepared for the greatest battle in the species' history. The Zephyrians would return in 18 days expecting easy conquest. Instead, they would face the awakened fury of humanity. The Zephyrian invasion fleet materialized at the edge of human space, exactly 1 year after Admiral Kethvar delivered his ultimatum. 500 massive warships appeared in perfect formation, their dark hulls gleaming with the power of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying the human colonies that should have been abandoned months ago. Status report. Kethvar commanded his tactical officer. Sir, we detect significant human military presence throughout the sector. Multiple fortified worlds and what appears to be a large fleet concentration near Kepler 442. Kethvar's forearms moved in a gesture of mild annoyance. So they choose extinction. Very well. Signal the fleet. We advance on Kepler 442 first. Once we destroy their outer defenses, the inner colonies will surrender. Captain Danny Foster watched the enemy fleet approach from the bridge of the UNS, defiant. His ship was part of the outer defensive screen protecting Kepler 442. Around him floated 200 human warships waiting for the battle that would determine humanity's survival. Zephyrian fleet entering weapons range in 5 minutes, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Kevin Walsh. Danny activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. The enemy believes we are primitive and weak. They think our technology is centuries behind theirs. In a few minutes, we're going to show them how wrong they are. Admiral Patricia Cole commanded the human fleet from her flagship UNS Liberation. She had positioned her forces in a defensive formation around Kepler 442, but this was not the traditional battle line the Zephyrians expected. Instead of massive ships arranged in neat rows, Patricia had scattered her fleet in 3-dimensional clusters designed for maximum confusion. Admiral, enemy fleet is deploying for assault, reported Commander Ryan Torres, who had transferred from the Discovery to serve as Patricia's tactical coordinator. Signal all ships. Execute plan chaos. The human fleet exploded into motion. Ships that had been holding formation suddenly scattered in dozens of different directions. Some dove toward the planet while others climbed above the system plane. Fast attack craft accelerated directly at the Zephyrian line, while heavy cruisers flanked around both sides. On the Zephyrian flagship, Kethvar watched in confusion as his sensors tried to track hundreds of human ships moving in seemingly random patterns. What are they doing? This is not proper fleet tactics. His tactical officer worked frantically at his controls. Sir, I cannot establish targeting priorities. Their formation has no clear command structure or strategic focus. Then we will simply destroy them all. Signal the fleet. Open fire. The Zephyrian energy weapons lanced out across space, creating deadly beams of concentrated plasma that could vaporize mountains. The first human ships to be targeted simply disappeared in brilliant explosions. But then something unexpected happened. Captain Danny Foster felt the defiant shudder as enemy fire struck his shields. The bridge lights flickered, and damage reports flooded in from all sections. But instead of being destroyed, the ship held together. "Shield status," Danny demanded. "Sir, the adaptive matrix is analyzing the enemy weapon signatures. Each hit is teaching our shields how to resist their specific energy patterns." On the Zephyrian flagship, confusion grew as their weapons began losing effectiveness against human shields. Ships that should have been destroyed with single shots continued fighting after multiple hits. Lieutenant Amy Chen piloted her fighter craft through the chaos of battle, dodging massive Zephyrian warships while searching for her target. Her small ship carried a single kinetic torpedo loaded with experimental explosives. "This is for everyone back home," she whispered and triggered her weapon. The torpedo accelerated to 30% of light speed in seconds. It struck the Zephyrian heavy cruiser, Dominant Victory, amidships, and kept going. The alien ship had been designed to withstand energy weapons that attacked its surface. Nothing in Zephyrian experience had prepared them for a physical projectile that punched completely through their vessel from bow to stern. The Dominant Victory broke apart in a chain of explosions as its power core went critical. For the first time in over 1,000 years, a Zephyrian warship had been destroyed in battle. Kethvar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "How is this possible? Their weapons are primitive projectiles. Our shields should have stopped anything they can build." "Sir, the human projectiles are not energy-based. They are physical objects moving at relativistic speeds. Our shields are configured to stop energy attacks only." Across the battlefield, more human torpedoes found their targets. Zephyrian ships that had seemed invincible began exploding as kinetic weapons tore through their hulls. The aliens tried to adapt their tactics, but their massive ships were too slow to avoid the swift human attackers. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the battle from the command center on Kepler 442. Her quantum communication system allowed perfect coordination between human forces while the Zephyrians struggled with conventional radio links. "Admiral Cole, the enemy is attempting to jam our communications." Patricia smiled grimly as she watched her scattered fleet tear into the alien formation. "Let them try. Their jamming technology is designed for conventional systems. They can't touch our quantum encryption." The Zephyrian fleet found itself fighting an enemy unlike anything they had encountered before. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from impossible angles, then vanishing before return fire could find them. Their weapons ignored shields that had protected alien vessels for millennia. Worst of all, the humans seemed to coordinate their attacks with supernatural precision. Captain Danny Foster led a squadron of strike cruisers against the Zephyrian flagship. His ship had taken dozens of hits, but the adaptive shields grew stronger with each impact. "All ships concentrate fire on their command vessel. Hit them with everything we have." 20 kinetic torpedoes converged on Kethvar's flagship. The massive alien ship shuddered under the impacts as explosions tore through its hull. Critical systems failed throughout the vessel as human weapons found their mark. But the Zephyrians were not helpless. Their superior numbers began to tell as human ships fell to concentrated fire. Despite their technological innovations, humanity was still vastly outgunned. Admiral Cole watched her casualties mount and knew the battle was turning against them. "All ships, this is Admiral Cole. Begin withdrawal to secondary positions. We've bloodied their nose, but we can't win a straight fight." The human fleet began its planned retreat, leaving the Kepler system to the Zephyrians. But the cost had been enormous for both sides. The aliens had lost over 150 ships, while the humans lost 80 vessels. For an empire accustomed to easy victories, the casualty rate was shocking. Kethvar stood among the wreckage of his flagship's bridge, surveying the damage reports. 1/3 of his fleet had been destroyed or heavily damaged by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. "Signal the High Council," he ordered. "We require additional forces to complete the conquest of human space." As the Zephyrian fleet moved to occupy Kepler 442, they had no idea that every moment of the battle had been recorded and transmitted to human military headquarters. Dr. Rodriguez and her team analyzed every alien weapon discharge, every ship movement, every tactical decision. The enemy had revealed their capabilities and humanity had learned. Admiral Cole retreated to the inner colonies with her surviving ships, but she was not defeated. The Battle of Kepler 442 had been lost, but it had taught humanity invaluable lessons about their enemy. "Signal all commands," she ordered. "Transmit complete battle analysis. We know how to hurt them now." The war was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Kepler 442, and the war had settled into a grinding stalemate. The Zephyrians controlled 12 human systems, but their advance had slowed to a crawl. Every world they took cost them dozens of ships and thousands of lives. Admiral Kethvar found himself fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. Captain Victoria Lane commanded the UNS Retribution, one of humanity's new stealth carriers. Her ship represented the evolution of human technology, combining salvaged Zephyrian components with innovative human engineering. The result was a vessel that could appear as empty space on enemy sensors while launching swarms of autonomous fighters. "Status. Report," Victoria asked her executive officer, Commander Bobby Martinez. "Ma'am, we're holding position 3 light hours from the Ross 128 system. Zephyrian fleet strength is estimated at 200 vessels, including their new command dreadnought." Victoria studied the tactical display showing the enemy fleet arrangement. The Zephyrians had learned from their early defeats and now fought more cautiously. Their ships stayed in tight formations using overlapping shields and coordinated fire patterns, but their caution would soon become their weakness. Fleet Admiral Patricia Cole had spent months preparing for this moment. The Battle of Ross 128 would demonstrate humanity's newest strategy, the Ghost Fleet Doctrine. 2,000 human ships approached the Zephyrian stronghold using advanced stealth technology. On enemy sensors, they appeared as asteroids, space debris, or simple background radiation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez monitored the fleet's approach from her command center on Mars. Her quantum communication network allowed perfect coordination between scattered human forces while keeping them invisible to alien detection systems. "Admiral, all Ghost Fleet units, report ready for assault." Patricia nodded as she watched her trap close around the unsuspecting enemy. "Signal all ships. Execute Operation Phantom Strike." The space around Ross 128 suddenly exploded with human warships. Vessels that had seemed like harmless asteroids revealed themselves as deadly predators, armed with the most advanced weapons humanity could build. The Zephyrian fleet found itself surrounded by enemies that had appeared from nowhere. Commander Kevin Walsh led the first boarding assault in human military history. His armored Marines launched from stealth transports toward the Zephyrian heavy cruiser, Eternal Dominance. The alien ship's shields could stop energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, but they were not designed to prevent boarding actions. "Remember your training," Kevin told his troops as they approached the enemy hull. "These aliens have never fought us hand to hand. Show them what human soldiers can do." The Marines cut through the alien hull using plasma torches and poured into the ship's corridors. The Zephyrians inside were tall and graceful beings adapted for ship operations, not close combat. Human soldiers in powered armor with kinetic rifles proved devastatingly effective in the narrow passages of the enemy vessel. Captain Danny Foster watched from the bridge of his rebuilt ship UNS Defiant as human boarding teams systematically captured Zephyrian vessels. His adaptive shields now shrugged off enemy fire that would have destroyed him months earlier. "Target their command ship. All batteries concentrate fire." Dr. Lisa Kane served as military advisor to the boarding teams, having become an expert on alien biology and psychology. Her analysis of captured Zephyrian technology had revealed a critical weakness. "Admiral, their ships are controlled by centralized AI systems. These systems can adapt to conventional tactics, but they cannot handle completely unprecedented situations." This discovery had led to humanity's greatest tactical innovation. Human unpredictability became a weapon in itself. While alien computers tried to analyze human actions and predict responses. Human commanders made decisions based on intuition, emotion, and pure creativity. The battle reached its climax when Captain Jake Morrison led a desperate assault on the Zephyrian Command dreadnought. His heavy cruiser UNS Vengeance had been heavily modified with experimental weapons and engines. "All ships, this is Morrison. We're going to ram their flagship." The tactic was borrowed from ancient naval warfare adapted for space combat. Human ships accelerated to maximum velocity and struck the alien command vessel like guided missiles. Their crews ejected in escape pods at the last moment, while their ships delivered devastating kinetic impacts. Admiral Kethvar felt his flagship shudder as human vessels struck its hull at relativistic speeds. Explosions tore through the command decks as critical systems failed throughout the massive ship. "Damage report," he demanded, but his tactical officer was dead, and his control systems were failing. The Zephyrian command structure collapsed as their flagship died around them. Ships throughout the alien fleet lost coordination as their centralized control network went down. Human forces pressed their advantage, striking at confused and disorganized enemies. Victoria Lane watched from the Retribution as Zephyrian ships began retreating in disorder. Her fighter squadrons pursued the fleeing aliens, inflicting massive casualties. "Signal all pursuit units. Don't let them regroup." The Battle of Ross 128 ended in complete human victory. The Zephyrian fleet was destroyed with fewer than 50 ships escaping to carry news of the defeat back to their empire. Humanity had lost only 300 vessels while inflicting casualties that shocked the alien military establishment. Admiral Patricia Cole stood among the wreckage of the Zephyrian command ship, accepting the surrender of surviving alien officers. The beings who had once seemed so superior now looked broken and defeated. "Signal Earth," she ordered. "Ross 128 is ours." But the victory came with disturbing intelligence gathered from captured alien computers. Dr. Rodriguez analyzed the enemy data files and discovered the true scope of the Zephyrian Empire. "Admiral, they control over 10,000 star systems. Their total fleet strength exceeds 1 million vessels." The news sobered the human celebration. They had won a significant battle, but the war was far from over. However, the psychological impact of the defeat rippled through Zephyrian space. For the first time in their history, they had been decisively beaten by a species they considered primitive. Kethvar survived the destruction of his flagship, but his career was over. The High Council stripped him of command and assigned blame for the military disasters to his tactical failures. His replacement, Admiral Vorthak, brought a new strategy based on overwhelming force and total destruction. "The humans fight like wild animals," Vorthak reported to the Council. "They ignore civilized rules of warfare and use tactics no rational being would attempt. We must respond with maximum brutality." The Zephyrian response would be swift and terrible. Reinforcement fleets were already moving toward human space, carrying weapons designed to sterilize entire worlds. But they had awakened something in humanity that they did not understand. Admiral Cole reviewed casualty reports from the battle while planning her next offensive. Human losses had been surprisingly light considering the scope of the engagement. More importantly, they had captured intact alien vessels and prisoners who could provide intelligence about enemy capabilities. "Ma'am," Commander Martinez approached with the latest strategic assessment. "Intelligence estimates the enemy will bring at least 5,000 ships to their next assault." Patricia smiled grimly as she studied star charts showing Zephyrian territory. "Then we'll need to hit them before they can organize that kind of force. Signal the Admiralty. Request permission to carry the war into enemy space." The defensive phase of the conflict was over. Humanity had learned to fight their alien enemies and win. Now it was time to take the offensive. The Zephyrians had demanded humanity retreat to Earth and accept slavery. Instead, they would face the wrath of a species that had tasted victory and wanted more. Space around Ross 128 filled with human construction ships as engineers began building a major fleet base in the captured system. The message was clear to any alien observer. Humanity was not retreating. They were expanding their war machine and preparing for the next phase of the conflict. The hunters had become the hunted. 6 months after the Battle of Ross 128, the largest human fleet ever assembled, moved toward Zephyr Prime, the capital world of an empire that had ruled this sector of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Admiral Patricia Cole commanded over 5,000 ships crewed by warriors who had transformed from desperate defenders into merciless conquerors. What had begun as a fight for survival had become a war of annihilation. President Claire Bennett stood before the Zephyrian High Council, aboard their diplomatic vessel in neutral space. The alien leaders who had once demanded humanity's surrender now begged for terms. Chancellor Mordeth spoke for his dying empire, with a voice that trembled despite his efforts to maintain dignity. President Bennett, surely we can reach some accommodation. The collective offers full recognition of human territorial claims and trade agreements favorable to your species. Claire looked at the tall, blue-skinned aliens who had threatened to turn human worlds into burning cinder. Chancellor, your empire gave us an ultimatum: retreat to Earth or face extinction. We chose a third option. Your forces have exceeded all reasonable military objectives. You have captured 50 systems and destroyed hundreds of our vessels. What more do you require? Claire's expression remained cold and implacable. Unconditional surrender. Complete disarmament of your military forces. Dissolution of the collective government and acceptance of human authority over all former Zephyrian territory. The alien council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Mordeth's 4 arms moved in a gesture of desperate pleading. You ask us to accept slavery to a species we have never harmed beyond defending our legitimate territorial claims. You threatened our children, Claire replied. You demanded we abandon billions of people to satisfy your expansion policies. You chose war when we offered friendship. This is the result of that choice. On Zephyr Prime, Colonel Nathan Brooks led the largest ground assault in human military history. His Marines had been hardened by months of brutal fighting against an enemy that showed no mercy to prisoners. They would return the favor with interest. The planetary defense systems that had protected the alien capital for millennia crumbled under human orbital bombardment. The Zephyrian military had been designed for space combat and controlling primitive subject worlds. They had never faced an invasion by warriors as ruthless and adaptable as human soldiers. Nathan watched his armored divisions roll across the alien capital while fighter craft dominated the skies above. "Sir, the enemy government complex is requesting terms for surrender," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Amy Chen, who had been promoted after her heroics at Kepler 442. "Tell them to surrender unconditionally or we level the entire district," Nathan replied without hesitation. "They started this war by threatening our families. We'll finish it our way." Dr. Elena Rodriguez unveiled humanity's final technological surprise from her laboratory on the captured world of Proxima Centauri. The exotic matter weapons her team had developed could destabilize the quantum foundations of matter itself, creating explosions that made nuclear weapons look like firecrackers. "Admiral, the test was successful," Elena reported to Patricia over quantum communication link. "A single device can sterilize an entire continent. We now possess the ability to destroy worlds as easily as the Zephyrians destroy cities." Patricia studied the test data from her flagship UNS Vindication. The weapon represented the culmination of human scientific achievement, born from the desperate need to match alien technology. "Are you certain about the targeting systems? We cannot risk accidents with weapons this powerful. The guidance systems are foolproof. We can target specific locations with pinpoint accuracy, or expand the effect to cover entire planetary surfaces. The choice is ours." The Zephyrian High Council received news of the human superweapons with a mixture of terror and disbelief. These primitives, who had seemed so backward just 2 years ago, now possessed technology that surpassed anything in the collective's arsenal. Admiral Vorthak made his final report from the bridge of his retreating flagship as human forces swept through the outer systems of Zephyrian space. "The enemy advances on all fronts. Our defensive lines have collapsed. Fleet strength is down to 12% of pre-war levels." Chancellor Mordeth closed his eyes and felt the weight of his species' failure. "Signal our forces to cease all military operations. We surrender." The formal surrender ceremony took place aboard the UNS Vindication in orbit around Zephyr Prime. Admiral Patricia Cole accepted the submission of an empire that had conquered dozens of species and ruled thousands of worlds. The aliens who had once seemed so superior now knelt before human authority. Captain Danny Foster stood beside Patricia as the Zephyrian military commanders formally transferred control of their remaining fleet to human oversight. His ship, the Defiant, bore the scars of dozens of battles but had never retreated from enemy fire. By the terms of this surrender, Patricia announced, "The Zephyrian Collective is dissolved. All military forces will be disbanded and their weapons transferred to human control. Former collective worlds will be governed by the Terran Colonial Authority until such time as they demonstrate fitness for self-rule under human oversight." Mordeth signed the surrender documents with hands that shook from age and defeat. "Admiral, you have won a great victory. Your species has proven its strength, beyond question. But consider the burden you are accepting. Governing an interstellar empire is far more complex than conquering one." Patricia looked out at the human fleet surrounding Zephyr Prime. Thousands of ships crewed by beings who had transformed themselves from peaceful explorers into galactic conquerors in just 2 years. "Chancellor, we didn't ask for this war. You brought it to us. We'll adapt to the responsibilities just as we adapted to everything else you threw at us." The ceremony concluded with the lowering of Zephyrian banners and the raising of human flags over the capital world of their former enemies. News of the surrender spread throughout known space, carrying a simple message. Humanity had arrived among the stars and would not be denied their place. Dr. Lisa Kane monitored alien communication networks from her intelligence station, noting the reactions of other galactic powers to humanity's victory. "Admiral, we're receiving diplomatic overtures from 17 different species. They all want to establish formal relations with the new Terran Empire." Patricia smiled as she read the messages. Beings who had ignored humanity's existence just months ago now competed for their attention and favor. "Signal all diplomatic contacts that we welcome peaceful relations with any species that respects our territorial claims." The transformation was complete. A species that had been given an ultimatum to retreat to their home system now controlled territory spanning hundreds of star systems. The Terran Empire stretched from Earth to the former Zephyrian capital, encompassing the dreams and nightmares of both civilizations. Admiral Cole delivered the final message that would be remembered throughout galactic history as she addressed the surrender ceremony. "You came to our worlds with ultimatums. You believed we would kneel before your superior technology, your ancient empire, your countless victories over lesser species. You were wrong. We are not like the others you have conquered. We do not surrender. We do not kneel. We do not forgive those who threaten our children, our homes, our future." She paused, looking directly at the defeated alien leaders. "You should have left humanity alone. Instead, you chose war. This is the result." The final epilogue came months later as human exploration fleets pushed into previously unknown regions of space. They carried with them the reputation earned through blood and sacrifice. The message reached alien civilizations thousands of light years away. Humanity had taken their place among the galaxy's great powers through strength and determination. Other empires that might have challenged human expansion reconsidered their plans. The fate of the mighty Zephyrian collective served as a warning to anyone who might underestimate the species from Sol. Peace through strength had become humanity's watchword. Captain Jake Morrison commanded the exploration vessel, UNS New Horizons, as it entered uncharted space beyond the former Zephyrian border. His mission was to make contact with unknown civilizations and establish diplomatic relations. But his ship also carried weapons that could destroy worlds and a crew trained in the hardest school of warfare the galaxy had ever seen. The message humanity brought to the stars was simple. We come in peace, but we are prepared for war.